For any of you guys that are looking for a Filipino wife or girlfriend, hang in to the end of the video. I got something that could be a real lifesaver for you. Hello folks, I'm still up here in Luzon, living on the rice paddy, so let's get right into today's video. Well, I'm heading out today. I've been wanting to go out to see another rice farm, so that's what we're doing today. I'm on the trike, and they're going to go out today and deliver some of this urea. Urea is, as you can see, 46% nitrogen. It's what they're using to, feed the rice crops. So we're going to go out there today and deliver some of that and just kind of look around. I've never really had boots on the ground of a real large rice paddy farm. This is one of the gentlemen that actually works the farm that I'm heading to, and that's the tractor they use. A little bit different than we use in the States or Canada and out west, but nevertheless, that gets the job done. And probably very efficient, easier to work on, and a heck of a lot cheaper. But we're heading out today. We get out there today, and as you can see, it's rice as far as you can see. I've never seen anything like this or rice fields as large as this. But it was interesting nonetheless. And we're walking out to one of the little cabins that they stay in when they're harvesting. This would be it. Not much more than kind of a little fort that I'd kind of built when I was a kid, but it suffices. And this is where they'll stay when they're harvesting and to cool off in the day and maybe catch a meal when they're out there working all day, probably, and into the night. And I've been told it's one of these families used to live actually in that. But out there, pretty self-sufficient. They've got their bananas. They do have some garden up the road. And you'll see in a minute, the gentleman that was driving the tractor, he actually lives on site there. And this is his little homestead. I'm kind of jealous a little bit. He's got a nice wife and a couple of kids. The little girl was cute as a bug. And they live out there. They've got their pigs, they got their cows, they got goats. And they self-sufficient. Heading out there, though, is a little bit dangerous for a white boy like me. Bumped my head against a tree, and lo and behold, had a bunch of these little critters going down my collar. Definitely didn't need caffeine to get me going that day because these things got me moving quite fast. But I did find them interesting nonetheless. As you can see, they're very reminiscent to me of the fire ants we have back in Texas. And they do have a pretty good bite to them here, too. But as you can see, very busy ants. Again, like I said, I've had a long time. I mean, I've stayed in rice paddies over in Vietnam, up on the Chinese border, and different places, Cambodia, Laos, places like that. But I did want to check out the ones here in the Philippines. And literally where I was sleeping was about 6 feet from the rice paddy, from the water in the rice paddy. We had snakes coming up, frogs, everything. And this gal, after we left the rice paddy, they decided to go ahead and rustle up some grub for us, so she's pulling coconuts out of the tree. No helmet needed.
This one is more good.
Can't get much fresher than that. And of course needed some water too. They didn't have running water out there, but they did have a pump. I think there's some folks in America that would give their right arm to have a pump like that. But like is in the Philippines, rain's going to come. And it did rain for a bit that day. So we moved the cooking action indoors. And as you can see, that's not much of a hut. But finally the sun did clear up and we were able to get back out again. Like I said, very beautiful, very tranquil. It looks like a little oasis over there where they've got, where someone lives. I'm not sure what they do or what they're doing, but I'm sure it's pretty tranquil. Very nice. But it was time for me to cram myself back into the trike and get back on the road to get to the rice farm that we're staying at, or I'm staying at. And of course I got my gal taxi driver there. And here we go. Heading down the road through Science City, Muñez, back to the other rice farm where I've been staying with these farmers. A little nervous about riding those trikes at first. Now I kind of like them. You know, in America, you get so used to just climbing into a truck or car and isolating yourself. There, you're out in the wind, the breeze, seeing people waving. I actually enjoyed it. I think there'd be a good market for these type trikes in America as well. Saves on gas. You can still move freight and people. That's my tip for today. You better not steal that idea. Was quite a ride. I would say probably about a 40-minute ride back to the main homestead here. That little shack is kind of the one I was staying in. Over at the main house where a lot of the meals were served, this is kind of it. I was able to use they did have Wi-Fi, so I was able to use my laptop there. And there's the crew. They're all kicked back, relaxing, obviously watching their phone, and now they're getting ready to cook up some Philippine grub. And this is the famous lumpia, which is one of the major foods of the Philippines, as most of you may know. Ooh, and while we're out and about, this gal was in the back cooking up the lumpia. And what would any day be in the Philippines without dogs barking? All day, all night, no matter where you are. And I'm not complaining. I typically get used to it. And there's the finished product of the lumpia, and those are delicious, obviously. And we're in the rice paddy today. We did catch a couple of snakes. And of course, for me, I have no problem with that. I love snake, so here we go. We got a little snake adobo, and it, again, was delicious. Then after all was said and done, took a little ride into town. This one wanted to go ahead and have a cerveza, a beer or two, or maybe too many. And myself, I've never been a fan of karaoke. To me, it sounds like a lot of noise, a lot of music with a lot of screaming. But to each his own. Don't want to seem judgmental. And like I said, this one probably had one or two too many. I was a little bit concerned because she was actually driving the trike, and we had a ways to go yet. And so at some point I had to shut things down and say, hey, let's go. But I figured, you know, it was a farmer, getting her off the farm for a day, probably a real pleasure for her. But like I said, the karaoke not a thing for me. I'll go ahead and stick to the hamster entertainment. Alrighty, folks, well, that about wraps it up for today. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did making it, and I hope you'll join me for the next one that's coming out. Should be a couple more days, and I'll have one up for you. In the meantime, remember, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Have a great day.